Hi, I'm Mike Lee. A few days ago, my colleagues and I announced a proposal for a balanced budget amendment to the U.S. Constitution. We have all 47 Republicans in the United States Senate co-sponsoring and supporting this legislation. We hope to get as many Democrats as possible, and once we clear the critical two-thirds threshold in the Senate, it can move on to the House, and if it gets the necessary two-thirds vote in the House, it'll move to the states for ratification, and it will take effect after it's been ratified by three-fourths of the state legislatures. We recently posted on Facebook a question asking our constituents in Utah how they felt about the balanced budget amendment and whether or not they had questions about it. And we'd like to address some of those now. The first question comes from Brett Randall, who asks, won't the balanced budget amendment stall the economic recovery in America and job creation? Brett, the short answer is no, it won't. And in fact, quite to the contrary, a balanced budget amendment will help promote the economic recovery in this country. What we find, what economists who have studied this issue around the world have discovered, is that once an economy reaches the point at which the nation's debt passes the critical threshold of about 90% of debt to GDP, the debt to GDP ratio goes above the 90% threshold, and we're now well within that. We're approaching 100%, a one-to-one debt to GDP ratio. The economy starts to go south. Economic growth can be slowed by as much as 1/2 every single year. In an economy as large as ours, that can mean a loss of about 1 million jobs a year for as long as we remain in that danger zone above 90% of debt to GDP. So I believe that not only will a balanced budget amendment not hurt the economy, it will help it. It will help us avert additional disasters, financially and otherwise. It will facilitate a more constitutionally limited government, a more fiscally responsible government, the kind of government that can eventually bring about some tax cuts to help further stimulate economic growth. So this is what we need. Our next question comes from Gina Worthen, who asks, is a balanced budget amendment in line with the original intent of the Founding Fathers, and are there already protections in the Constitution that prevent overspending by Congress? Well, to some extent, anytime you change the Constitution, Gina, you are changing the intent that they had. Article 1, Section 8, Clause 2 of the Constitution gives Congress the power to incur debt in the name of the United States. And so we are altering that. We're restricting Congress's ability to engage in deficit spending. So yeah, it is changing the intent in that respect, but it's changing it in a positive way. Now, the second part of your question was, aren't there things already in the Constitution, or are there things already in the Constitution that can help to control spending? The short answer there is yes, there are, in that the federal government was always supposed to be one possessing limited enumerated powers. If Congress were adhering strictly to that, we'd be spending a lot less because Congress would be focused on a few basic things like national defense, regulating trade between the states and with foreign nations, and regulating trademarks, copyrights, and patents, bankruptcy laws, and so forth. If we focused only on those things, we'd be spending a lot less at the federal level. But since the late 1930s and early 1940s, when the New Deal era was at its height, the Supreme Court has interpreted the Commerce Clause and the Spending Clause of the Constitution broadly enough that Congress, since that time, has been able to do just about anything it wants without interference from the courts. And so that's why that has not stood as a significant bulwark against excessive government spending.